Hi my dear friends, in this short video I want to recommend you a marvelous website for your practice in real English. First of all, reading, of course. Reading is the basis of 80-90% of your success in English, as in any language, because reading means your passive vocabulary, not just separate units, but those lexical units in their relations and correlations and everything, in associations. The more you read, the better you will be in English generally, and specifically in IELTS, Duolingo, TOEFL, and all other tests of English. So if we want to develop our English greatly, we better search not for something adapted, as is propagated by Cambridge's, Oxford, and so on. Their websites are marvelous, yes, but when you're reading such things, your subconsciousness or even unconsciousness fully realizes that something has been prepared for you. You see, something has been simplified, that it is not a real thing. That's why I always recommend my students, and we do so if we work together, to read and listen and watch something just original, authentic, not adapted. So Quora.com, you can pronounce it as Quora or Quora as you like, I think it doesn't mean, is a huge website with some questions, answers, topics for discussion. So sounds like a forum. Yeah, yes, we can call it a forum, but I know Quora for, I have been acquainted with it for maybe 6, 7, 8 years, but right now I've had an idea that this site is really of value to you. For instance, if we go to education, for example, section, yeah, so the first post which springs here is some story. Please pay attention to the level of English here. Let's read just 3-4 lines. A young man met an old man and asked him, "Do you remember me?" The old man replied, "No, I don't." Then the young man said, "I was one of your students." The old man asked, "Oh, really? What do you do now?" The young man answered, "I became a teacher." "That's great, just like me," said the old man. "Yeah, I became a teacher because you inspired me to be one." So as you see, the level of English is not very high, because this is a story, like an old story, an old wise story, and if you read it you will love it, I guarantee, because this is about kindness and about the wisdom. But then after each story we have comments. So then I go and read comments, the discussion. I can write a comment, of course. Then if we go on, we see the next post is Donald Trump correct that President Barack Obama was not academically qualified for admission to an Ivy League school without affirmative action? So you see, absolutely another style, level, and so on and so forth. If you love this, you read this with a dictionary, without a dictionary. There are a lot of applications, tens or hundreds of them. When you hover the word, yeah, and by default you have some kind of a translation or definition. Depending on your level of language, you can use either translation or definition. Both are good. Of course, definition in English is greater than translation, but there are a lot of buts, and so I don't object those translators, because they economize you minutes and hours of time and energy, and so you're welcome. Please, for example, admission, you hover and you have the translation to your native language. It's very powerful. You understand the message, at least you understand 1 or 2 or 3 meanings of this word, and that's what can save us at the real test. So you don't have to understand the word very deeply to read all those 15 sub meanings with 15 sample sentences for each, and so on and so on. So you read, you develop your English. Yeah, it facilitates your growth. Some comments. Yeah. Now the third story. Never underestimate anyone. This is that famous story about Leland Stanford, his spouse, and their deceased son. So how these two people, being very wealthy, and how they tried to address the president of Harvard, but they were very, they were clad very, simply. So this is the photo, I think, in this photo they are clothed very, very prestigiously and richly, but when they came to the president of Harvard, they were dressed simply, and so he thought that they were some peasants who, and he was busy and he didn't want to talk to them. As a result, they decided, in the memory of their deceased son who loved Harvard, to build their own college, and which turned into Stanford University, which is now ranked often higher than Harvard. So here the level is like something intermediate between the first story that I showed you and the story about Donald Trump. And again, you are reading, it's real, you see, you are taking part in the real thing. No adaptations, no curtailing, something like that, clippings, cropping. So you are really, no primitivization, something like that. You are hearing, or in this case seeing, English from the horse's mouth, as they say, and I really love it. Sometimes I recommend you to read a lot of comments on YouTube, yeah, but if you don't want to search for those videos distract you from reading. Here nothing distracts you from reading, you just read. Also you can take part, nobody restricts you in this. You can post a comment here, or by the way, for example, about this Harvard and Stanford, 330 comments. Yeah, so you can choose the section, the sphere, the realm which you love, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of those discussions. Beautiful site, very powerful for your for the growth in English. So dear friends, give it a go, as they say. Visit Quora.com, register there. I'm sure you will love it. If you need assistance in your preparation to IELTS, Duolingo, TOEFL, please write to me. Also, I have a marvelous video course for your independent preparation to Duolingo test called DET with Flying Colors. So all my contacts and links are in the description, and some of them are also on the screen right now. Okay, wish you success guys, and see you in our next video.